I was 21 and I started getting these mysterious pains. My whole torso would tighten up and I would barely be able to walk. And I started going to doctors and getting all sorts of blood tests, and nobody could figure it out. Everything came back, you're so healthy, everything's fine, it must be in your head. I had my bathroom floor moment, and I started talking to my body. I just started apologizing to my body. I was like, if you tell me what to do, I promise I'll never treat you this way again. And I really believe that through that opening up and that communication with my body, that I was led to find the answers.
Hello, everybody. Happy Wednesday, and welcome back to another episode of The Wellness Effect. We are really excited today. We have a special guest joining us. It will just be Lacey and myself today. Jensen's on a fun little trip, so we're kind of just taking the reins on this one. But we have with us today Cassandra Bodzak, and she is a mindfulness author, an actress, a holistic wellness guide. She's really known for helping soul-led women design lives that support their energy, their purpose, their expansion. She has a cookbook that is it already out or is it coming out?
Yeah, it's
It's
out. I can't.
out. Yay. Okay, so we are going to talk about it. It's called The Mindful Table, and it really invites readers to heal their relationship with food and their body by learning to listen to their intuitive wisdom and take back the power surrounding their well being, which is amazing. Could not be more aligned with what we're doing here. She has studied lifestyle medicine, nutrition coaching through Harvard Medical School. She got her certification as a holistic health coach through the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. She kind of bridges science and spirit and really helps women create a foundation for expansion through intentional nourishment alongside activity and self care. You may actually recognize her from ABC's The Taste with Anthony Bourdain, or even collaborations she's done with Shape, Teen Vogue, Eating Well, Lululemon, Soul Cycle. And she really brings a grounded, relatable energy to conversations about intuitive living, conscious lifestyle design, and the very complicated relationship that a lot of us women have with our body and with food. So, welcome, Cassandra. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Yay.
That's quite
We
the
would
intro.
I know. I was like,
It's
oh my
amazing.
God.
It's amazing. That's such a and you know what? I love it that, like, I went to film school way back in the day, and I'm always like, "This is so random." I'm like, "She's an actress?" Like, this is so exciting.
It's
But
funny.
yeah,
I
I
think a lot
would
of us did end up in wellness.
yeah, that's probably I wonder why that is. We'll have to look into
Right?
that. Um, but I would just love to start out with, a little bit about your story getting into this space and like specifically with your book. Was there a moment in your own life where you really realized that your relationship with food or even your body needed to change or grow or shift in some way?
Oh yeah. Well, speaking of our past in film, and so my journey really started as when I started wanting to be an actress, and that was in middle school. And I went on to act in high school and got a BFA in acting. Through that, I think that was like one of the first kind of things where I saw that, like, in this world that felt kind of uncontrollable, I guess, that it was like something I could control about myself. And I've always been like an inherently ambitious person. So when I looked at it from that perspective of like, this is how I could give myself like a leg up on the competition, I really just took it to extremes and was over exercising, taking too many supplements. I'm 5'8", but I feel like I was like born 5'8" in a way. Like, like growing up in like elementary school, I was like always the weird tall girl. And it's funny because now like 5'8" is not like that crazy tall. But when you're with a bunch of little kids, I was always like the back of the line as like the tallest person for everything. And so I think I had just like that also gave me a little bit of a complex. Like, I'm big, which now I know was like a complete distortion of reality. But that kind of fed and was just part of my path as I continued on, did my BFA in acting in college. And it wasn't until I was 21 and I started getting these like mysterious pains where it'd be like my whole torso would tighten up and I would barely be able to walk. I was a big dancer. I couldn't dance. And that went on for a couple of months. And I started going to doctors and getting all sorts of blood tests and trying to figure out like what the F is going on with me. And nobody could figure it out. Everything came back, you're so healthy, everything's fine. There's nothing, like it must be in your head. And that was really when this whole conversation began for me because I had my kind of what it was like, what do you call it? Like eat, pray, love, bathroom floor moment with my body, except it
Yeah.
wasn't like a divorce, it was my body. And I was just like, just started talking to my body and was just like, I don't know what to do. Like, I want to help you. I made like penance. I had this feeling at that moment that this was like some sort of punishment for how I had been behaving around my body, right? Even though I couldn't necessarily find the direct correlation, like I think inherently I knew what I had been doing and how I've been thinking about my body and the way I've been treating my body. Like there was always something wrong with it. It was like some karmic thing, is what I thought. And so I just started apologizing to my body, asking it. I was like, if you tell me what to do, I promise I'll, never treat you this way again. And I really believe that it was like through that opening up and that communication with my body that I was led to find the answers, which ended up being, food allergies and sensitivities. And I put myself on an elimination diet. And I think that was the first, like, quote unquote diet or whatever, like protocol, really, that I ever went on from a place of love, right? From a place of like such deep reverence and respect for my body and really just willingness to try whatever it took. And so that's kind of how this, like, the crux of this whole conversation started opening up. And at first, before it, was what it is today, it was really at the encouragement of a lot of my sorority sisters in college that this was like the time when, like, I think, blogging and like, I never live journaled, but I think live journal just had come out, and then blogs were just starting to be a thing. And a lot of them were like, Cass, like all the stuff you're finding out and like researching and figuring, out is super, you know, good to know, even for them who didn't have necessarily all the food allergies, but still wanted to figure out ways to be healthy and find that like healthy balance with food. And so that's kind of how it all began. I started sharing both, like as I was, figuring out how do I make a healthy version of mac and cheese that I can eat or something, and then also just sharing like this shift with my body.
So cool. Yeah, I love that. I always love hearing people's stories of how they got into the space because it's always a good one. It
Right.
never fails.
Yeah.
It's
It
always
just
good.
drags you in.
Yeah, I love that. And that's kind of like one of the questions that I wanted to ask was just around like, because I know you talk a lot about healing your or healing our relationship with food. And we talk a lot about that as well with ours. And even I like resonate so much with your story. But in your experience, I guess with just like talking a lot about that, is there something like deeper going on? What are we actually kind of healing under the relationship with the food, if that makes sense? Does that make
No,
sense?
I think yeah, absolutely.
This episode of The Wellness Effect is brought to you by Lifestyle You. If you're listening to this podcast and thinking, okay, this sounds like me, whether it's low energy, hormone imbalances, stubborn symptoms, or you just feel like you've tried everything, Lifestyle You is our root cause coaching program designed to help you actually connect the dots.
We use functional nutrition, personalized support, and functional lab testing to figure out why your body is doing what it's doing, instead of just guessing or slapping a band aid on symptoms.
And because you're a listener of The Wellness Effect, when you use the code Wellness Effect, you'll receive a free functional lab when you join the program. If this episode is resonating with you, make sure to share it with a friend, subscribe to the podcast, and check out the show notes to learn more about Lifestyle You and how to apply.
I think it all comes down to really our relationship with ourselves. And then you could even take it to like your relationship with a higher power. Because a lot of people, you know, are what I call like trying to fill a God-sized hole. and they're doing it in one of two ways, right? We're either like overeating to numb out and to like not feel what's going on, to like, because things are intense and stressful and whatnot, or they do it the opposite, right? They're over exercising or under eating, with a similar intention, really, right? To, again, like in my situation, right, where I was feeling like out of control, instead of actually like having faith or trust, or, having some sort of relationship with whatever higher power, and being like, dear God, I like have this like burning desire to do this thing. Can you help me, guide me, like show me what the things I can do? I felt like I was alone and I had to white knuckle it, right? And so the way I talk about it in the book is really through that lens of, because I want to keep it open to like whatever people's faith, religion, like whatever their relationship is, because I think no matter what your higher power is, if you have a higher power, it works. um, and that's a big part of it. And then also, when I talk about body wisdom and tuning into your body wisdom, to me, like our bodies are these beautiful divine earth suits, right? That our souls get to inhabit in this lifetime. And so when we have that relationship, we are thinking of it from a place of reverence, right? We're thinking of it as like, this is my temple, this is my home, this is essentially one of the comparisons that was really helpful for me that I share in the book is thinking about it as a long-term life partner, right? Like your body is with you from when you're inside your mother's womb until you're in the grave, right? Like there's no life partner like your body, right?
Say it
And
again.
like this is it. This is what you get, right? And so imagine if you had that same kind of love that you have for, your kids, right? Or your spouse even. I mean, I say kids because I think the kid is like probably the purest love. But even if it was like at a spouse level, right? Where sometimes they annoy you, right? And they're, they're not perfect. There's still that like deep, profound sense of love and respect and wanting the best for that person. Like you would never tell your best friend, husband, whatever person you love most in this world that I don't think I can love you until you get that six pack, or like I'll love you when you're like 5 pounds less, then you'll be lovable, right? Like we wouldn't do that, but we do that with our body. And so yeah, I think our relationship with food goes back to our relationship with our body, and our relationship with our body goes back to our relationship with the divine. And you can also say our relationship with ourself, right? One of the other things that I see as like a really big helper in this process is opening up that communication and tuning in. And when you're tuning into your, you could say you're tuning into the divine that flows through your physical being, or your highest self, right? To me, your highest self is like your divine mind, right? Or your body's wisdom, right? To me, they're all kind of the same flow that's coming in, and by whatever name you want to call it. And we get that more specific guidance from that place. And then it becomes about, I want to do what is going to honor my unique soul and my unique physical being. And from that space of reverence and devotion, instead of from this place of, I need to change myself, or I need to look a certain way, or I need to do this thing because everybody else on Instagram says they got to do this thing.
Yep.
Yeah, and I love that. It's so interesting how once you start to lean into that too and trust it, how much it expands your capacity for so much more in your life as well. That's something we talk about a lot. It's literally why we call our podcast is called The Wellness Effect, because it's the ripple effect that you just cannot deny, and you start to see it in your life, and it's so expansive in every way. So I just love that. And I wonder, for some people it can be a really hard step to take to start
trusting your body and learning, especially as women, we're told a lot to like shut down our feelings and shut down that intuitive piece inside that's literally telling us with our symptoms, with the way that we're feeling, that something isn't right. So, is there something that you teach or share to just allow people to start hearing those whispers or even listening to them when they start to kind of come through?
Yeah, so there's two things. One is a guided meditation to connect to your body wisdom, which I have. If you guys put the link to the book as one of the book bonuses, I did record like guided meditations so that you can just like listen to me and I'll walk you through it. And one is for like connecting to your body wisdom around what food is going to feel best for me, what movement do I need, what's the best kind of care, rest, self care activities that my body needs right now. And then there's another one for connecting to your body wisdom or your intuition around decisions, and learning how your body is always giving you information, right? And we just often, like you were saying, we kind of just push it down and we're taught to ignore it. And so that one I find interesting, and I encourage people to do that, even if it's a small decision. If it's like, my girlfriend asked me if I should like meet up with her to get coffee today or whatnot, right? Somewhat inconsequential seems like, but tuning into your body and recognizing what a yes feels like in your body and what a no feels like in your body, because your body almost always has an opinion. And when you start to see the cues of your yes or the cues of your no, then again, it's like how we build that relationship. And a lot of us have very like similar cues, as far as like a big cue for a yes is like getting energy. It's feeling more relaxation, noticing like your shoulders relax, I would say, right? Feeling your heart open, your chest open, leaning forward. Those are all signs that your body is saying yes to something. When you're saying no, you feel the tendency to want to like kind of cuddle up. That's often a no, right? If we're kind of going in. Another no would be like immediate loss of energy, where you just kind of feel like, oh my God, I'm drained just thinking about that meeting, right? And we get all these signs, right? But we don't sometimes realize that that's literally our body communicating that that thing is not aligned for us. And it goes even way beyond like food, food and self-care and stuff. It'll be like, no, that job is not aligned for you. Like that conversation is not aligned for you. Like that friend is toxic. It's giving us so much information. So I encourage people to start tuning in on that level, on like really inconsequential daily things. Because I think when like the big things happen, we get all in our heads sometimes. But if you've been tuning in on like, do I get like a hot coconut milk latte or a cold matcha today? Right? We're like, the world's not going to end if I get the wrong one, right? Then you start to notice, and you might even like, one of the things I do with the food is I say be a food detective, but you can take that beyond, right? You could be like a body intuition detective as well. And I encourage my clients to keep a log of it. So if you're tuning in for something, keep a log. I tuned in for, let's say, the coconut latte versus the matcha or whatnot, and I heard matcha, but then it was kind of cold outside. So I was like, no, I'm just going to get the hot coconut latte. And I kind of went against it. And, I kind of felt icky. Just like make a note, right? And it's amazing sometimes just like being able in hindsight to go back and be like, so maybe the next day you do it and you get the other one. You're like, interesting. I had like way better energy by 10 a.m. A similar thing is like I checked in to go to this event with my friend, and my body check-in was kind of giving me no's, but I felt like, hey, I already said yes. I already got a babysitter, So I pushed myself. I went. It was totally lame and I was utterly exhausted, like whatever, right? It's like keeping track of that stuff, because that's actually what builds our self-confidence and our intuition, is whether or not we like listen and do the quote unquote align thing or not. It's still good information for us.
Mhm.
In fact, sometimes it's like even better information when we go against it and we see what happens. Um, but I feel like that's a good practice I tell people to do, like just in general. And I really encourage people to do it for like smaller things that they don't feel like carry as like much monumental weight, because it gives you that experiment to be a little bit more playful with it and not be so stressed out and not get super into your head usually, which is key. And then the practice I talk a lot about in the book is becoming a food detective. So this is also about like reclaiming your power around honoring what works for your body and actually like going through. And I have my clients, without changing anything in their diet, unless they want to do a little like, am I going to get a wrap or am I going to get a salad? And what does my body want? Right. But like, don't like drastically shift anything. I'm like, just eat how you eat, and then go through, write down what you ate or what you drank and how you felt when you made that choice, how you felt about 30 minutes to an hour afterwards, and if there's anything you noticed about how you felt like in the next 2 hours, energy wise, focus wise, body wise, whatnot. And then through that, after doing that for 2 weeks, you start learning what works for your body, what doesn't work for your body, the ways that your body specifically communicates, because there's a huge spectrum. There's like the difference between a food giving you like hives and a food just making it so that like you can't even think straight on your next call. Both are reactions, but one's not going to be qualified as like a allergy, right? But you might want to know that, right? Because if you want to have your brain for your next call, maybe you don't want to eat whatever that food is.
No,
That
I
food
love
for
that.
me is gluten.
Yeah, I know. The whole food group, I know. Same. It's hard. But I love that, just like starting small and then learning to trust yourself in that, and then being able to make those bigger choices by just like tuning into your intuition. And it's funny because we're also coaches. We have a coaching company, and I always know that like if the client can come up, like the goal is to get the client to think it's their idea or whatever, because that just buys them so much more into the process versus you just saying like you need to eat this and this and this. And so I can see how like having that and being that food detective eventually will really empower that client to be like, oh no, this food doesn't actually serve me the way that it does, as long as they know how to listen to their body properly. And it also just gives people an opportunity to slow down and actually have the time to just be like, well, how am I feeling? Because I think so many of us are just so disconnected from that because we just never slow down to even ask ourselves, like, how is my body? Is my body speaking to me today? Because so I love that. So do you kind of use that method over like tracking or like meal portions or
Oh yeah,
yeah.
for sure. It's for me, that's a lot of the people also that are coming to me, those things would be like unhealthy
Yeah.
in my opinion, right? It would be reinforcing behaviors that are aligned with an identity of themselves that we are saying goodbye to. And so, and again, for me, I think it's really also about honoring that bio individuality, right? But, so for me, it's again, all of those things. I don't believe in one size fits all formulas. So I'm never going to tell someone that you have to eat a certain amount of protein or a certain amount of this macro or keep under this calorie count, because I believe, especially when you're working with women, that changes on a daily basis. What you actually need, depending on your cycle, depending on the season, like is it winter, is it summer, where is that going on? How are you working out? Where are you? Like, did you just have a baby? Are you trying to get pregnant? Are you in premenopause? Like, there are so many different factors that come in that I think really I want to teach people how to intuit into their body and listen and lean in on the days where they have that relationship where they can be like, you know what? I'm in a certain phase of my cycle and I'm craving more carbs. So what are the carbs that are going to make me feel good? You know what? I always feel like really grounded and centered after I make myself a sweet potato, right? That's a really good carb for me during that part of my cycle when I'm craving carbs or whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of more of what I lean into. And because I think not only do we not there's a lot of like, based on research. I'm a research girl, and I definitely love looking up like studies, and a lot of times I like to look up studies to affirm like theories. Um, but like, but like I went and I took those classes, and I did that because I wanted to be able to be educated to say, hey, I know a lot of people think because of my philosophy around like body intuition and mindfulness around food and body that I'm like, ignoring science, but that's really not the case. And I think you're actually surprised at how much our bodies naturally align with where the research goes when we're listening. It's kind of a miraculous thing. But what you were saying, Lacey, about the importance of like the client buy-in, I'm a huge believer. I'm sure you guys are familiar with Bruce Lipton, The Biology of Belief. And one of the things I love to do with a client when we're starting out is have them tell me what they think their like the healthiest diet is. Like tune in, we'll do a meditation. I have them visualize their best self. So I'm like, I want you to visualize you that has like the career you love, the, amazing relationship, feeling your best, vibrant, like all of the things. And how is that version of you eating? If they're in the highest alignment. And then I have them write that down for me. And then that's where we begin, is aligning them with that. Because I have yet to have someone that comes to me after that with something that I look at and I'm like, that's really unhealthy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Do
I
you
love
find that
that.
you get the same answer from a lot of people? Yeah.
Because
Everyone.
intuitively, we
Yeah,
all
like,
know. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not brain science, right?
No.
Yeah.
Like organic, whole foods, plants, fruits,
Yeah.
I feel like deep down we all know. And so it is really important for like a multitude of reasons, I think, for you to be bought in. And I think in times, even in my own life, in times when, I was like, had someone, some like practitioner or whatever, try to like force me into a lane that didn't feel good. Like, I don't discount that, these people like knew what they were doing or whatnot, right? But if I don't have a buy-in on an energetic level, I've never seen it work.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. That's
It's
the thing.
interesting because like there's so many women, kind of what you said at the beginning, of they're either on like that side of rigid control, they're so meticulous with everything that they eat, and then there's the other side who doesn't care, doesn't prioritize it, more on the overeating side. So they're just like almost so disconnected from that intuition. Do you ever find it like hard, or to help someone kind of rebuild that trust, or just like through your meditations and like starting with the small questions of like leaning in, asking yourself what coffee you want today? Is that how you kind of focus on rebuilding that trust? Or
I think and I'm sure you guys probably feel this way in your practice too, like when someone has the amount of willingness it takes to work with one of
yeah,
us, right? Then that to me opens the door,
yeah,
right? When I was in school, there were times where I had to do a bunch of different test clients, and some of them were nightmares.
Yeah.
yeah. I was gonna
Um,
say, because you just like your vibe attracts your tribe, so I'm sure that
yeah.
people, yeah, yeah,
And you have to
yeah.
like beg your family to do it for you, and then they're just the worst.
And your family,
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
family is the absolute worst, right? Because they're like, I'm doing you a favor. They
Yeah.
don't really want, yeah. So I'm like, no, I don't do that. I don't do that. I feel like, to me, I think for probably almost anything in life, honestly, not just this, like the first step is always the willingness, right? There, like I can work magic if you have willingness.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you don't have willingness, I could literally have like, a magical Dumbledore wand and it would do nothing on you because nothing can happen without willingness, in my opinion. If you're, and that's one of those things. It's like, I will say, let's say, I don't want to say like a more difficult client, but like there are some clients I think that are more straightforward, right? Where we'll immediately jump into like what, we do that visualization. You tell me what is your version of like the healthiest thing for you. And I'm also asking about like your exercise, your spiritual practice, like your daily rituals in addition to food, because I believe it's all connected. So that's like lifestyle medicine that I studied is very much in that vein. And in my book, I call it the well-being trifecta. And kind of like you were saying with the wellness effect, right? I call it creating this foundation for expansion. My goal with my clients is not just that they, figure out how to eat healthy and have, a great body or whatever. My goal is that they have amazing lives, right? Yeah. Is that they're able to create whatever they want because they have the energy, vitality, and the mental space to go do whatever their heart desires in the world and focus on that and not not be so obsessed with the food. Let that just be a thing that's like part of it. Some of the, I think, more less straightforward clients, I'll say, we just have to go and do more healing. A lot of it is like going back to childhood sometimes. And if there is a deep wound of unworthiness that we need to heal, or a deep wound of unlovability, or, like we all have these moments in our life from childhood sometimes that we've made mean something about ourselves and what we can have and what we can't have. And then there's a lot of coping mechanisms sometimes that also come out of that. So I'd say for clients like that, then that's where we begin. I still have them do the same visualization, and I still have them do that. I still have them do the food mood journal. And I really encourage them to because to me, just doing the food mood journal, and they'll email that to me at the end of every week, whether they take pictures if they like to write it down, or they're doing like a notes app or a Google Doc or something, then I encourage them that I'm not going to judge any of that. I just want to start off with that baseline of honesty. So I don't care if you went out with your girlfriends and had 5 margaritas and 12 tacos and then had dessert or whatever it was. To me, it's a major win if you actually wrote that down and told me, right? Because if you're hiding it, then we're like 3 steps away, right?
Yeah.
So that's, and then I think with anyone, as we're doing the other work, right, like in our main sessions, then maybe we'll look into some of these deeper things. We'll do some more like bilaterally programming, EMDR, like reprocessing childhood trauma things, so that we can rewire these behaviors and release these unhelpful, negative self-beliefs. But I like to have them doing that all along the meantime without needing to like feel like they have to change or maneuver everything. Because once we add that level of awareness to it, slowly they start wanting to shift things incrementally. Slowly they're like, wow, I always get that muffin at Starbucks on my way to work and I never feel good afterwards, right? And so then they start saying like, well, I'm still subbing at Starbucks. Like, what else can I get? Let me try the yogurt. Let me try a whatever, right? And so, yeah, so that's kind of how it goes if it's like it's a bit more of a disconnect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just kind of like along that lines, what we've seen in practice is how easily women will discount the work that they are doing because of the one little thing that they think for some reason is wrong. And it is typically surrounding food. It's I ate too much, or I had something I shouldn't have had. And when we can kind of start to just build that trust and they're able to tell, that's always such a win for me too. I'm just like, that's huge. Like, what are you talking about? Great job. And they're like, what? What's going on? So I love hearing that. That's so cool. But I do want to talk a little bit about your cookbook, because the thing that I really love hearing about is like the way that you bring the seasonal aspect into it. I think that's something that is so often overlooked. And I love that it's kind of coming more out. I don't know, I'm just seeing it a lot more now. So can you just tell us a little bit about what that, like, with the rituals and the seasonality, why is that such a big piece of your cookbook, and like our relationship with food and the tools that you kind of share?
Yeah. So here, I have it behind me.
Yeah.
Boop, boop. That's so cute.
Oh, so cute.
I love it.
So the first part with the seasons, the seasonal thing is something that I also find when you start tuning into your body's wisdom that you naturally notice this. Like you notice that like when it's colder outside, you're going to want more, warming foods. You're going to want heartier foods. The same foods in the summertime, you're like, ew, gross. Like I don't want to eat that. Right. And vice versa. So, you know, if you are, for instance, like, feeling like pretty disconnected, I think this is a great way to start experimenting with that, to start noticing like, okay, well, if I'm used to just like on autopilot having smoothies in the morning because that's what some fitness influencer told me is the healthiest thing to eat, then let me play around. Wow, there's actually like what are, maybe some winter breakfasts that might be more warming, right? And playing around with that. So it's like, okay, well, maybe I want to try the avocado black bean hash, or, I just wanted to show people the difference, right? Of what it could be like if you start tuning your food to the seasons. And in the book, I also really encourage people to go to their farmer's market because obviously, like I'm in California, winter here is not the same winter that my parents are experiencing on the East Coast right now. So while I will say, even in like a California winter, I still very much like crave warming foods. It's not going to be to the level that I do when I'm back home with my parents, right? In a California winter, it's a lot easier to get away with that smoothie, even though I'm still always out for oatmeal in the winter. But but back home, oh my God, the thought of a smoothie with like the amount of snow, I'm like, oh, and it's so interesting. Again, it just helps us connect our body with the earth too, right? And our the seasonal cyclical beings that we are and how it is all connected, and have a more mindful experience. So I wanted to connect it in that way. I also, I'll just share this for anybody that has the book that's reading it. I have this vision that if you are someone that loves gathering with girlfriends, there's enough recipes for each season for you to have like a seasonal gathering. And so my thought would be is that then you could use the recipes from each season and pick a couple of the rituals in there to do together. And I think that would just be so fun. That was my vision. I tried to like add it to this book, and my publisher was like, I think that's another book. I don't know if we can add that to this book. But I was like, I'm going to tell everyone that will listen to it. And then for me, the reason that I wanted to connect like the meditation or the ritual with a recipe was because I really wanted to drive home this message of it's all connected, right? And that the nourishment comes from our spiritual connection, our meditation. Nourishment comes from our self-care rituals. Nourishment comes from our movement, and nourishment comes from our food. And so helping people connect all of them, the way I think is a really fun way to also use this book is you can use it as an oracle in like one of two ways. So for instance, if you're just like, what's the message that we need to hear right now, or the listeners of the Wellness Effect need to be reminded of right now?
Let's see.
This is a funny one. This one is that my cauliflower apple soup, which is very on point seasonally, I'll say. And the mantra is, my patience is precious. And this is the little blurb says, whenever I feel my patience running low, I think about the acorn growing into an oak tree and remind myself that my patience allows the magic to happen. I can trust that if I've planted the seed, nature will make the flower blossom. As you follow the different steps of making this soup, you can slow down, enjoy the prepping, enjoy the roasting, enjoy the blending, and trusting that it will all come together in perfect time. And so
That brought tears to my eyes.
it was for you. You guys.
It was for me.
And so if you can like think about it like that, if you from that perspective can see how the food connects to the ritual, connects to the meditation, right? Connects to this message, right? That, And this is a winter recipe or fall recipe, winter and fall recipe. So we're in that energy, right? We're in an energy where we haven't seen we planted the seed of our desire. We planted the thing of what we want, but we haven't seen the bloom yet. The bloom's not coming to spring, right? So we need to like sit in that like supported, held, patient energy, which is also always a struggle for me as well. So I wrote that for myself. Um, but that's one way I like to look at the book is like, just from a fun perspective, especially if you're like, I don't know what to make for dinner and just pull it. And then the flip side of it is that you can also use it in a fun oracle way of looking through and being like, okay, what pops out of me that I'm craving right now? So like maybe you're like, oh, here's a good one because I really do love this one, the veggie curry, right? So I'm like, veggie curry looks good for dinner tonight. And then as you're making that, you can just look, ooh, what's the mantra for that? What is like the message that I'm getting just from what I've been attracted to food wise? And that is, I release everything that is not serving me. And it comes with a little visualization that's essentially like watching these like ships set sail, and you're putting like these things that are no longer serving you on the ships and watching them flow away down the river. And so I think, yeah, I think it's fun to like go both ways, but it's hopefully a persistent reminder that it's all connected.
I think this is the coolest book I've ever heard in my life. I'm
Thanks,
so
guys.
excited. Well,
It
I
is,
just
though.
I love that idea. And I feel like we've got so like robotic with food preparation, and we've made food and eating this like dreaded chore of meal prepping, and it's boring and it's annoying. And I just love bringing like reverence back to it. It's almost like a lost art. And even raising my kids now, I'm like, holy shit, giving them the gift of loving to cook is probably one of the best things you can do to set them up for health and wellness for the rest of their lives. So just like now tying it to this even bigger, expansive picture than that, like I just have full body goosebumps that will not go away right now.
Aw,
I
yay.
love
I
that.
love that. And also I think, also like being a mom and like having busy days and then, having to prep dinner. I even myself as a cookbook author, as someone that loves cooking, does this thing. It's so easy to get into that space of like, oh, like this one more task I need to get done, right? And so I feel like it's nice. One of the things I love about when I'm making one of these recipes, at least, is that whatever that mantra is that's with it, it kind of gives, I like take that on as like a little meditation practice as I'm like chopping the vegetables and like getting everything together. And I'm just like, I try to hold that energy so I can still be like, kind of watching my kid and like doing all the things. But in my head, I'm like, wow, okay, where am I not being patient? Where am I trying to rush the outcome? I just like, it's like a little contemplation, and it helps me feel like it's more of a self-care moment, which makes me enjoy it.
Yeah. No, I love that. I have like I was going to say it's a selfish question, but it's really not. It's just I'm so curious as cuz you've done such a good job of like the nutrition, the belief in higher power, however people go, and then also like the spiritual meditation side of things. But what kind of came first for you, I guess, and then what was like kind of that journey?
So the first thing that happened was really what I shared with you at the beginning, was like that food awakening. So I would say food came online first, and the conversation with my body was my entrance to like more of a spiritual conversation. And it first began just through that like more basic, I would say, body intuition. And then a few years later was when the deeper spiritual journey came online. And that was, I had another bathroom floor moment, whatever you want to call it, where my little brother actually got diagnosed with a terminal autoimmune condition called, I can't pronounce, it's essentially I'm gonna like jumble if I say it, but it's where his intestines and his liver eat themselves. And so he's stable right now, but we had a few years there where he had a lot of like life-saving operations. And that kind of brought me to this place where I had never felt so like helpless and hopeless and sad in my life. And that's when I started meditating, from like really more formally meditating and not just like tuning into my body, for food guidance or workout guidance. And I really just tried, one of the things I think that you'll notice in the book, I have no idea exactly how many recipes, but let's say there's probably between 70 and 100. I love that they didn't like call out the number, because who cares? But yeah, it's between like, I think it's probably between like 80 and 100. But every single one has a different meditation, right? And a different way to practice. And sometimes it's a bath meditation, sometimes it's a walking meditation, sometimes it's more standard meditation or a mantra meditation, or like there's all different kinds. And some of them are Kundalini, some of them are based on like different traditions, because that's kind of how I went on my spiritual journey. I like buffeted it, right? Like I tried a little bit of everything. And to this day, I still love so many flavors. Like I've never, like I'm trained in like Vedic as well, and Kundalini and stuff. And I go through just like with food, right? I go through my own seasons with it, where I'm in a season where I literally just want to do my mantra in my head and don't want to listen to anybody's voice or any music. And then I'll be in a season where I'm like, I want to chant mantras. So the reason that's in like that in the book is because it mirrors my own journey. And I wanted to also offer, along with like a buffet of recipes, because not every recipe is going to be for everyone and not everybody likes the same things, and that's fine. I think meditation is similar like that. That oftentimes people will try one meditation and then they're like, not for me. And it's like, no, 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 no. That's like trying like one variety of fruit at the farmer's market and saying that like you hate all fruit. Like maybe you just don't like plums, right? And there could be something else that you like. And so that was kind of how my journey started. And the magic that really happened, because I was in a really sad place, I was very gung-ho. Meditation was one of those things that kind of was like a lifeline to me during that time in my life. And the so much of the success that I had, I really think happened after that, because being in a meditation practice that I was really just doing it from a place of, I need to find peace, and I need to find, how can I be like a sane advocate for my brother in the hospital, and like, and my mom was obviously falling apart, and all this stuff. And so I came at it from that angle. And then like the surprise bonus gift I got was that my intuition and my alignment became so online from that, because I was then following the things that lit me up. I had no space for bullshit, right? So anything that wasn't aligned, anything that wasn't no, was just like falling away. And I started pouring more energy into my blog. I started doing YouTube videos. I even had, for a brief time, a vegan gluten-free cupcake company. And that's kind of how I ended up on the TV show and got my first book deal. And I had clients messaging me just because they had followed me on like Instagram and my blog, and were like, hey, do you coach people? I would love to talk to you, because I really feel like I relate. And so I really credit everything that, has happened since, was really from finding that connection that came right a little bit after the food.
Yeah. I always love that, just on like what came first, the chicken or the egg.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people's the opposite, but I find that, so especially with like the spiritual side of things, it's like usually it gets bad, and then we learn to rely on, or not rely on it, but just it's not yours to carry, like you kind of said in the beginning. So that's
Yeah.
powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they
So,
go hand in hand,
yeah.
and you get, my hope is that like these days people don't have to go through such horrible things to get on track, that you can get on track earlier with less distress. But I think whichever way you enter the conversation first, right? You can only be aware and tapped into so much of what's going on in your life when you're meditating and spiritually connected, without eventually that flowing over into the foods you want to eat, right?
Yeah. 100%. Because it's even going back to what you said at the very beginning about just loving yourself and making the decisions that the highest version of you would make, and the more in tune and aligned you get with her, then everything kind of just falls into place. So I love that. Well, just like that, we've hit an hour, which I did not
It
even
flew
realize till I
by.
just looked at my clock. So I want to be respectful of your time, but tell the people anything you want to tell them, where they can find you, anything else you wanted to share. And we're happy to link everything and anything in the show notes for you guys that are listening if you're interested in learning more about Cassandra.
Yay, thank you. Yeah, I'm on Instagram at Cassandra Bodzak. I'm also on Substack. That's like one of my passion platforms right now. So I write weekly articles on Substack. You can find me also under my name, Cassandra Bodzak, but I'll give you guys a link because I think the title of my publication is With Intention from Cassandra. I don't know how that works though. But yeah, and then like I said, if you're going to grab the Mindful Table, we'll put a link. Be sure to grab your book bonuses because I recorded. So I have 2 guided meditations for body wisdom that I mentioned before. So you can use those, especially if you're new to it. You don't have to obviously like by no means listen to me forever. But if you're curious about like, how does one start this? I think they're a great place to start. Just let me kind of walk you through it and then you'll be able to like run with it on your own and make it your own. And then I also, for the book bonuses, recorded the extended, unreleased, unedited first like few chapters of the book, which really walk you through the heart of like the whole process of connecting back with your body, releasing your like negative roommate in your head that's saying mean things and all the food noise, all the food detective stuff that I talked about, and that whole process for really shifting your relationship with food in your body. It's all in audio for people that are like, you know, like me, that just like to listen to things while they're cleaning around the house or in the car, right? So all of that's for free in the book bonuses. So we'll put that link below too.
Amazing.
Thank you, ladies. This was such a treat. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, no,
this
that
was
was fun,
awesome.
and honestly took a lot away from that. So
Yeah.
we appreciate
you.
And
Yay.
hope everyone enjoyed the podcast. And like I said, we'll put all of the show notes in the show notes section. But thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.
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 Thanks for tuning in to The Wellness Effect. We're so grateful to be part of your wellness journey. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and follow us on Instagram. We'll put all of our handles in the show notes. If you have questions or ideas, slide into our DMs or send us an email. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep creating your own wellness effect.